Hi everyone, welcome back to So Arizona and day 4 of the fall planting series that I'm doing. I figured that since I am planting all of these seeds for my own garden, it would be fun to share with you and to have you come along with me every day as I plant seeds for my fall garden. And I know that sometimes it gets a little confusing to know when to plant what variety of thing, especially during these seasons of transition. So right now during monsoon season, today is July 23rd. I am planting things for both my monsoon garden as well as starting seeds for my fall garden. So it's a little bit hard to decide what do I need to pull and leave open so that I have room for my fall seeds to go in, and what things do I need to be planting in my beds right now for monsoon season, because I don't want all of my beds to be full in, say, mid to late September when I need to start setting some of these things out. So it's a little bit tricky. I thought it would be helpful for you. Hopefully it is. It would be really helpful if you would be so kind as to leave a comment below, just letting me know if it's helpful for you, and if there's anything else that I could add to a series like this that would be helpful for you in the future. All right, so with all of that out of the way, the first variety that we're going to be talking about today is Edamame, and I'm really excited about this one. It's not a super common one for people to grow in their gardens, but I think that it is such a fun variety to grow, and it's really delicious too. If you're from the Midwest like I am, you may be remembering those acres and acres of open fields of either soybeans or corn, and thinking there's no way that a home gardener will have enough space to plant edamame. And I'm mentioning that because edamame is actually a green immature soybean. I actually had no idea what edamame was when I was growing up, which is really funny because I grew up in the Midwest. My dad had a little farm, and so for part of my childhood he had corn and soybeans growing in alternating years, corn one year and then soybeans the next on his little farm. And then the house that I grew up in when I was a little bit younger also was surrounded by corn and soybean fields depending upon the year. And I can remember running through the fields of corn and through the fields of soybeans, and I would look at those soybeans and they looked like little fuzzy bean pods. And of course they were green at first, and then as they dried on the plant they would turn brown and they would get a lot drier. But I had no idea at that time what edamame was. That was just not a common food that we had at that time. Now I find myself wishing that I had known it and that I could have picked some of those green soybeans, even though they probably weren't the right variety, and tried the beans inside just to see what they tasted like. I wonder now if they would taste the same as the edamame that I am buying in the frozen food aisle along with the vegetables. And I will never know that because I didn't know as I was a little girl running through those fields that that could be a delicious food. And you might be thinking, well, if they're growing soybeans in huge acres and acres of fields, how in the world is a home gardener supposed to be growing soybeans? And the answer is that edamame is actually a pretty compact plant depending on the variety, and you can actually grow it in a raised bed if you have a smaller space. So I've got quite a few different styles of garden beds. I've got raised beds, and I've got really long in-ground beds, and then I also have some 4x4 square foot beds that are also in ground. And I've grown this edamame in those 4x4 beds, which is 16 feet squared, so a perfect 4-foot square is what I'm using, and they are perfectly suited for something like that. And if I can grow those in my in-ground beds, then I know for sure that a lot of you could grow them in your raised bed. So I thought that it would be a really fun one to just talk about. Edamame is a really good snack. If you've never tried it, I suggest you run over to your frozen vegetable section of your grocery store and you grab a bag of it. You can just steam it in the microwave for a couple minutes and add a little bit of sea salt, and that is it. It's really good and it is really satisfying. It actually is a complete protein, and it includes all of the 9 essential amino acids that we need for a good healthy diet. Half a cup of edamame provides 11 grams of protein, so that's really good for a plant protein source. Like I said, edamame plants will grow fairly compactly. You're looking at the average plant being about 12 inches wide and 2 to 3 feet tall. So it's a little bit bushy, but it could easily fit in a raised bed. The average days to germination for edamame are 75 to 90 days. And when you're going to be planting it, I think it's really good to soak it first and then plant plant it 1 inch deep, you're looking at between 4 and 6 inches of space between plants. And then of course you want to allow a little bit of space in between those so that they have room to grow around as well as up. They'll germinate in 2 weeks or maybe a little bit less. They take a bit of time to germinate and they need some full sun. So give them a place where they get full sun. If you're in southern Arizona, then you may want to give them maybe a bit of shade cloth while they're young so they don't get singed from the get-go. But once the fall arrives and once our sun becomes a little less intense, then you can take that shade cloth off and they'll really, really like it. I wanted to include a little bit of information on how you can give your edamame plants a boost, and that is by mixing them with a little bit of inoculant powder before you plant them. So I have some inoculant powder, and you can buy this from a lot of different seed suppliers, and this one is specific for legumes. And so there are different kinds of inoculant depending on if you're doing a cover crop or if you're doing peas or legumes or lentils. And so this one I will use for all of those things as well as for my edamame, and it is a rhizobia bacteria. And you may be wondering why on earth you would want to put bacteria on your legume seeds. Well, if you are planting in a raised bed with new soil, or maybe a raised bed that you haven't grown beans in before, or maybe you have a new in-ground bed dug that you haven't planted in before, there may be no or a low number of beneficial bacteria in the soil depending on what has been growing there. So I find that giving my legumes a little bit of a boost really helps with their performance throughout the season. And when rhizobia comes into contact with legumes, in this case, it will actually infiltrate the roots and it will form nodules. And in those nodules, the bacteria will take nitrogen from the air, atmospheric nitrogen, and it will transform it into a more usable form of ammonia that is really good for plants. And in return, the plants will give some really nice, delicious carbohydrates to the rhizobia bacteria. So it's a very mutualistic partnership, and it really helps the bean plants produce much better, stay healthier throughout the year, and this is just a really easy way to do it. So what I like to do to apply it is I will soak my beans overnight just to soften the seed coat, and then I will drain the beans in the morning, and then I will mix some of this powder with the seeds and I'll let them sit for an hour or 2, maybe 3 if I'm working on other projects, and then I'll just plant them as usual. Definitely get your hands dirty for sure. It looks like maybe you've been playing in cocoa powder or something. That's what the rhizobia powder looks like, the inoculant powder, but it works really, really well. So I would highly recommend that addition. If you want to just try planting your edamame beans by themselves without the inoculant powder, they will do just fine, I'm sure. So that's just a little extra for you in case you want to try it. I've actually only grown one variety of edamame, and that's the Midori. Sometimes it's called the edamame giant or the Midori giant. And when I talked about the spacing of 4 to 6 inches, that's for other varieties of edamame. So check the packet if you decide that you want to try it and you get a different variety than the Midori. But for the Midori, those are actually going to need about 12 inches of spacing rather than the 4 to 6, because these are bigger plants. These are going to get up to 36 inches tall, and I really, really like them. However, I was looking on Baker Creek's website, and I know that I vowed not to purchase any more seeds, but I just may have to make an exception to that because I found a really cool looking variety that is supposed to produce beans about 10 days earlier than the Midori. And that one is called, I wrote down the name, that one is called the Chiba Green. And the Chiba Green is supposed to give you faster production, larger beans, but it's still supposed to have just as good a flavor as the Midori. And the days to maturity on that is 65 to 90 days, and Midori is 75 to 80 days. So it'll give you a little bit quicker harvest. So if you're interested in having a little bit of fun, I think edamame is a really fun plant to grow. I think little kids would really get into it too, because as you're harvesting them, they could shell them, and little kids just love to fiddle with things, at least mine did. So definitely try that out if you're interested in that. And notice I did not ask my typical line of questioning of, do you like it, or is it better than store-bought, or any of those kinds of things, because this one is just really for fun. If you wanted to supply all of your edamame needs, you would need to purchase purchase it at the store, unless you had a ginormous field and you could plant just acres of them, I'm sure. I am going to attempt to plant while I'm talking to you, and the one that I'm planting right now is the bronze fennel, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So that's the bronze fennel. It's really beautiful. But with fennel, the first line of questioning that we're going to go to is, do you like fennel? So those of you who haven't tried fresh fennel before, it has a licorice flavor, like licorice, like black licorice, not like the red Twizzlers. And it has a very unique taste. I didn't like it at first because I actually don't care for black licorice at all. My mom used to really like it. She would eat those Good and Plenties all the time, and I just really don't like them. But if you like the licorice taste, the black licorice taste, then you'll probably like fennel. I plant 2 different kinds, which I'll talk about in a second. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But when I went to look at the grocery store, because it's been a bit since I purchased it, I wanted to see how much the organic fennel was. And for the most part, the prices that I give you for the grocery store are for organic, just because I figure if you're growing your own and you want something that is of equal quality and value, equal price, like we need to compare similar things. So if you're growing organically in your garden, then we need to compare the organic one. But if you want to get conventional, probably with most things it's going to be available, and it's also probably going to be just as tasty. It just may have a few extra ingredients on it if they've used pesticides and things like that. But you know what? We all are in our own budget range, and I spent most of my adult life in the budget range of having to buy conventional. And I think if that's what you can afford, eating vegetables is always great for you, no matter if it's conventional or organic. So you do what you can afford and what you've got access to. So don't worry about that. But just so that you know, I have compared organic with the garden grown. So I find that there are certain things that are available in organic, and then there are certain things that aren't. So like I said yesterday, I actually haven't been able to find Romanesco in any other section other than the organic section. And that may just be where I'm shopping, but that is my experience. So I've seen leeks, both organic and not organic, and I've seen most other things as organic or not organic, and fennel too for that matter. So you shouldn't have any trouble finding that if you need to purchase something that is just a bit more affordable. So the price on the organic fennel bulbs that I found in the grocery store was about $4 per pound. So they charge per pound, not per bulb, and usually you can buy it by the bulb. So a bulb will probably not cost you $4 because it doesn't weigh a pound. I'm not really sure how much it would weigh, maybe a quarter of a pound. Actually, I've never weighed a fennel bulb before. But it was between $3 and $4, and so you could really say $4 for organic and a little bit cheaper for conventionally grown. Y'all, I just had a breakthrough. I just talked to you while I planted 2 seed trays, and I am so proud of myself. And I only said about half a dozen times. It was really hard, I think, to talk and plant and try to remember not to say at the same time. Oh my gosh, so let me cover these up. If you're wondering what you use fennel for, you can use it sliced in salads, you can put it into risottos, you can roast it with other root vegetables, you can do lots of different things with it. It's really good raw though, it's very crisp and very sweet. A lot of people like that. I've actually been getting into Sicilian cooking lately, which is kind of funny. I know I'm not Sicilian, no one in my family is Sicilian, I don't know any Sicilian people, but I really like the food, and I came upon that accidentally because I was at Bookman's, which is a used bookstore here in Tucson. They've got a great cooking section, all kinds of different cookbooks. They've also got food essays and like food biographies or documentaries or whatever you want to call it. Lots of really good food topics, and so their book section in that particular area is so good. It's my favorite part of the store. And I was looking at the cookbooks, and they had a Sicilian cookbook. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. I leafed through it and I saw that a lot of the recipes were with things that I have coming out of my garden right now in excess, like eggplants and tomatoes and zucchinis and peppers and all sorts of things like that. So I thought maybe I'll get this one and I will try some new recipes and I'll figure out new ways to use some of this extra food that I've got that I have no idea what to do with. And I have ended up liking literally every recipe I've tried so far. I think I've tried maybe 6 or 7 recipes and they have all been so good. So I would highly recommend checking out some of the Sicilian recipes if you've never done that before. Just Google it. They're really well known for their blue zones, being part of the blue zone and being very long-lived people, and they think that in part it's from the way that they eat. So I thought that was very cool, and of course I wanted to try to be as healthy as possible, so I'm going to try continuing to cook with some of these recipes and see what else I like in the cookbook. I will link the name of the cookbook below. It's a really well-known author. I had never heard of her before, but I guess she has been a pretty prolific writer, so I think you'll like her and you'll like to check her out. So for fennel, you'll pay on average about $4 for a pound of organic fennel. And I just wanted to say it is about $3 for 50 seeds. I got 50 bronze fennel seeds for about $3 from Baker Creek, and that's actually current price, by the way. I went and looked it up this morning. And then this one is just the Florence Fennel, and it was about $3 for 200 seeds, and it's just a little more common than the bronze fennel. So my daughter Megan really likes the bronze fennel a lot better than the green Florence Fennel. I think they're both really good, but I think the bronze fennel is a little bit sweeter, and I think that's probably why she likes it. I love the way it looks. It has this really beautiful brown and orange kind of look to the leaf, a little bit of a green undertone, but mostly it's that very warm, rusty color. And I really like growing them together, just alternating the green and the bronze fennel, because I think it makes the garden bed look really, really beautiful. So if you want to try some fennel, you could definitely do those two and make your beds look really lovely. Fennel is commonly used for a landscaping plant because it's great for pollinators. If you live in a very warm region like mine, you can grow it as a perennial. I actually had some extra fennel a few years ago that I planted up front in my flower bed, and that was 4 years ago, and they have been coming back every year for 4 years, and they bloom and the butterflies come. It's a larval host plant for swallowtail butterflies, and so they will lay their eggs there. The caterpillars will come out and then they will hang out and eat on that fennel. And I find that I end up having these huge fennel plants that go to flower and then to seed, which is fine, because I don't have the heart to pull the extra ones out if they've gotten away from me and they're just too big to harvest for a bulb, because when I go to pull them, they are full of beautiful caterpillars. And then I wait a little while and I think, okay, now I can go ahead and remove it. But then by that time it's bloomed and it's got this beautiful umbel-shaped bloom, which is a flat bloom like a carrot or a Queen Anne's lace, and they're generally yellow. And then it is full of native bees and tiny little flies and predatory wasps, which are excellent for the garden because they go out and they will lay their eggs inside of aphids and caterpillars and other things, which is really beneficial for the garden. So then I have to let it wait a little longer, and if I don't be careful, it will go to seed and scatter the seed, and if that seed falls, you are going to have fennel everywhere in your garden the next spring because it will come up really easily. So it's a whole thing. I don't want to scare you away from planting it. If you are not as soft-hearted as I am and you're okay with pulling it before it goes to seed, then it should be just fine. A lot of people don't like to plant fennel ahead of time in a seedling tray because they think that if you disturb the roots, then it's not going to do well, but I have done it for years and I have had no problems with it. As long as you're not super rough with the seedlings, then it'll be just fine. Fennel will develop a really long, really robust kind of taproot, and so I think that's what people are worried about disturbing, but I haven't had an issue with it as long as you don't let it get too big in your seedling trays. If you plant it inside around August 1st and then you plant the seedlings outside around the middle, maybe the 3rd week of September even, then you shouldn't have a problem at all. So, and if you want it to go to seed, you can collect and eat the seed too. You can use it inside in the kitchen for cooking. spring. It's really good for you, or you could save the seed for the following year if you want to keep planting it. You want to allow about 4 inches of spacing per plant, and you also want to have the rows be about a foot apart. They can get pretty big and branching. I like to go sneak some of the fronds and put them in our salads even before the bulb is ready to harvest, and they are really good and really delicate flavor, and they're really pretty too. But I've shared already my favorite varieties with you. It's the Florence and the Bronze Fennel. They are about 60 to 70 days for a days to maturity. I was on Baker Creek's website this morning and I saw that they have several other varieties that looked really interesting, but I am only going to allow myself to buy that new variety of edamame. I'm not going to buy any more of anything else. I already feel like I'm kind of like backpedaling a little bit by doing the edamame, but you know, I just really need to try that variety for sure. So moving on to leeks. So I am going to plant leeks while I'm talking to you. At least I'm gonna try. So with the leeks, I like to just spread them out into just a flat little tray like this. It doesn't have the seed cells in it at all. I'm just going to spread the seeds out. I'm going to sprinkle them and try to space them out as best I can, because the idea is that I will just tease them out carefully and then plant those little onion seedlings out. And this is something that I do with my onions. It works really well. That is how growers like Dixondale Farms are growing their onions and their leeks as well. So when you order seedlings from them and they come in a little bundle, they've already done all of that work for you. But I have the seeds here for leeks, so I am going to try planting some. So the advantage of planting leeks rather than buying them is that it's really hard to get a small amount of leeks. So I really like ordering mine from Dixondale Farms, as I said, and I will talk about the variety that I always get from them in just a minute when I share the variety information. I can't get this packet open. There we go. The problem though is that when I order from them, the number of plants is kind of crazy. Even for me, even though I am, you know, growing a lot of the food that we eat and I will preserve a lot of it, it is just a lot of plants. So you have to order a minimum of 2 bundles. Each bundle, I think, has 4 dozen leeks in it. And so that is a lot of plants. And I ended up ordering 2 bundles last year, had really good luck with them, and I'll tell you how I preserved them in just a second too. But it just was a lot, and it took up a lot of space in my garden, and I just decided that I was going to try to start a few from seed and maybe skip on ordering leeks this time, just because it was so many plants to manage. But if you want to order leeks, I would recommend Dixondale Farms. They're really good. They usually ship in like January, I think, which kind of made me feel a little nervous, like it was going to be late. But remember, those leeks have had a head start. They've already started the seeds, and what they're going to ship you is some pretty good sized plants or seedlings. So they'll be ahead of schedule, and they always arrive on time. They're always high quality, and I've always had great results with them. So if you have a friend or a family member or a neighbor who wants to go in with you on a couple bundles of leeks, and you could divvy those out and share the cost and not have such an overwhelming amount of plants, I think that would be a really good idea and super cost effective too. I wanted to show you how I plant my leeks. So I just took the seeds, I'm sorry I didn't show you, and I just sprinkled them evenly across the surface of this moistened soil. And then what I'll do is I just take some more of my seedling soil and I will just sprinkle it lightly, just so that I can get those to about 1/4 of an inch. And then I will just, you know, spread that out evenly just to kind of cover them. And then after that, I will just water that in gently. And that is what I do with my onion seeds and also with my leeks. So let's go to our line of questioning. Do you even like leeks? Are they worth growing for you? So my answer is that I actually think it is worth growing leeks. I think the flavor is a little different than what you would get in a store. If you go buy fresh leeks from the grocery store, they are delicious. But I think that there is something really vibrant and really fresh about growing fresh leeks and being able to go out and harvest one and take it right into the kitchen. I think the flavor is a little bit better. And, you know, leeks are more expensive expensive at the grocery store. They're not a common thing like an onion or a potato. So those are going to run you between $2 and $4 for a bundle of leeks. When I was doing the math on this, I decided that I was going to say about $3, just as a nice middle range. And most of the bundles of leeks that I saw when I was checking were between 3 and 4 leeks in the bundle. So that means that you are paying about $1 or 75 cents per leek. So in contrast, if you get a seed packet, I paid $4.25 for the seed packet, and it comes with 100 seeds. And then also I've got one from Botanical Interest as well, and this one was $3, and it has a little over 200 seeds. It said plus or minus 210 seeds. So you can see that it is a lot cheaper to plant leeks in your garden than it is to purchase them at the grocery store. So just keep that in mind. I think the flavor is a bit better, and they're definitely less expensive than purchasing them. So those are two great reasons. But you have to decide if it's worth it to you and if you use leeks enough to really make it worth your while. So since we're on the topic of using them, what in the world do you do with leeks? Because not everyone knows. I use leeks in omelets. I use them in soups and stews. I make quiches out of them. I think that they're really delicious. They give a really light onion flavor, much lighter and much milder than just regular onions. And I just think that they have this just really nice, tender, buttery kind of flavor to them. So I like them a lot. So that is what you can do with leeks. You can also braise them. You can grill them if you're into that. So there are a lot of different things that you can use them for in place of onions that are a bit milder in flavor. For preserving them, I will slice them up into little rounds, and I will freeze them on a tray. And then once they're completely frozen, then I will scoop them off and put them into a baggie. And the reason I do it that way is because if you just stuff them into the baggie right away, then you'll end up with a huge block of leeks, and then you can't separate them. And so it's not easy to pour them out a little bit at a time as recipes call for them. You can also dehydrate them, and I've had really good luck with that too. If you're using them for soups, then they will reconstitute or rehydrate very easily, and I think they're delicious that way too. I didn't calculate a number per person for leeks because that really depends on how you cook. I think it's the same for garlic and for onions. We use so many alliums, so garlic, onions, leeks, scallions, all sorts of things. And so since we use so many of them, what I think is a good number is probably going to be different for your family, depending on how many onions and how much garlic you use throughout the year. So you will have to kind of figure that out for yourself. So for Dixondale Farms, if you want to order from them, I think the minimum is 2 bunches and the maximum is 9 just for a backyard gardener. If you want to order more than that, I think you have to go through the wholesale side of their business, and that is a different part of their website. So you'll have to check on that if you want a wholesale amount of leeks. But if you want a 2 bundle, that's the minimum order, it's $22. And so I think that's actually really good, especially since you think about it's 4 dozen per bundle, I think, and that's 22 bucks. So that's really, really good. I like planting leeks along the edges of my beds, right along the irrigation line though, so don't let them dry out. Don't plant them on the edge where it's really, really dry. I've got my furthermost to the edge irrigation line, and I will just follow that for onions and for leeks. I've also put them into my square beds. You could probably put them into raised beds. I don't think that they would have an issue. The root system is pretty shallow on that. I think maybe you're looking at like 8 inches, maybe 10. So that's pretty shallow, and so that could be accommodated by most raised beds and even containers if you wanted to just try a few and get a couple bundles and then share them with people. You're looking at 2 to 6 inches of spacing, and I always kind of err on the lower amount of spacing. So instead of 2, I'll probably do like 3 or 4 inches, because the closer together you get those, the smaller the root will be. So I like to give them a bit of room, a little more than 2 inches, but I don't give them as much as 6 inches. And then as far as the spacing goes in between the rows, I just like to leave myself enough spacing that I can get in there if I need to check on things, to repair irrigation lines, to weed if I need to. So I really only allow about a foot of space. Now it's recommended that you do about a foot, so I wouldn't go any less than that for your leeks. Leeks are a bulb, just like an onion, and it's primarily used for its white part, although there are some recipes that will call for some of the green. The very tips of the green leaves are pretty coarse, so you probably don't want to use those, but I will use some of the green until it gets too coarse to be chopped or to be used. And what you want is a really nice, generous portion of the white bulb part of the leek, and to do that you have to have it underneath the soil. So it's recommended that you plant your leeks 6 inches deep. So that's pretty deep if you think about it. If you get your little leek seedling, you want to put that 6 inches into the soil. If you want to do a seed, it's a little bit different. This packet says that you want to do it 1/4 of an inch deep. So if you're planting from seed, 1/4 of an inch, but if you're planting a leek seedling, you want to do 6 inches. And if you're worrying about whether or not it's going to get too cold for your leeks, leeks are pretty cold tolerant. They are cold hardy to about 20 degrees. It's been a bit colder than that in my yard, and they've done okay. I actually grew them last year way in the back of my yard, and we had just a couple nights where it got a little less than 20 degrees. If you're worried about them and you know you're going to have a cold snap, you could just put a frost cover over them, and I think they would probably be just fine. For those of you that don't know, you can water ahead of a frost, like the morning before, if you know it's going to frost that night, and that will help increase the temperature of the soil because that water is going to give off heat as it evaporates. So that's just a little trick. So you can cover with a frost cloth, and then you can water really well the morning before a frost is coming. So my favorite variety is the Lancelot, and that's the one that I get from Dixondale Farms, and so that will come as a little seedling. So that one is really, really nice. I have also used the King Richard, which is really good. I got this seed packet from Botanical Interests, and so let's see what it says. It says that it's got a rich onion flavor and cold tolerance, making it a favorite in home kitchens and gardens. The maturity on the King Richard is 75 days, and I forgot to mention that the seed viability for leeks is really low. It's only about a year, and that's the case with onions in general. So onions and chives and leeks have a really, really low seed viability. So if you've got some old seeds hanging around, normally I would say just plant them anyway and plant extra. But in this case, I think it would probably be safer bet to get fresh seeds. Now, if you want to try a separate tray with your old seeds and see what happens, then by all means do that. But you're probably not going to get very good germination if they're much more than a year old. The next one is the Prizetaker Leeks, and this one I got from Seed Savers Exchange, and this is going to be completely new for me this year. So this is a brand new one. I don't know how it's going to perform. I paid $4.25 for this packet, and it has about 100 seeds in it. So I wanted to read this to you. It says it's an English heirloom, and it first appeared in American catalogs at the end of the 1880s. It's very hardy. It's 36 inches tall, so that's a really, really big one. And it's got a thick, solid, pure white bulb on it. And so even with the larger size though, it says that it retains its tenderness and its mild flavor, but it takes a long time, 110 to 135 days from transplant. So that is in addition to how long it takes your seeds to germinate. That's just when you set the little seedlings out to grow. So this one takes a long time. I feel like I'm a bit late on this one. I did not realize that it had that amount of time that it needed, but we're just gonna see what happens. And it's already in this tray, so we'll see. Just as a comparison, that said 110 to 135 days. This King Richard says 75 days, so that is quite a bit longer, almost double in one case or another. The one that I really like to get as a seedling from Dixondale Farm is the Lancelot, and I don't know if I saw a days to germination on that. Let me look at my notes. 90 days. So that one's really nice too. It's supposed to have a really thick white bulb portion, and I found that to be true. I got some really, really nicely sized leeks from their seedlings that they sent me last season. So definitely check those out if you want to try planting leeks. I hope that that encourages you to grow some fennel, to have fun with some edamame, and maybe to try leeks too if you haven't tried them before. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to email me. I will try to put all of the variety information in the description box below, as I always do. This is video 4 of our fall seed starting series. I'm going to link the other videos below as well, so if you have missed one of those, you can go down to the description box and you can check those videos out too. You still have time to plant. This is July 23rd as I'm filming this, and the goal is to get your seedling started by August 1st. So I'm trying to do these videos ahead of time so that you have time to either go pick those up at your local garden center or order them online. But beware, if you peruse online seed stores, you will overbuy. I promise you, because I always do. I'll be back tomorrow with planting some more seedlings for you all to keep you all on track, and myself as well. I'm Kara from So Arizona. Thank you so much for watching. Until tomorrow, happy gardening.